What you doing on the AC, and this is Otaku News Reviews. This time I'm reviewing the manga Remina by Junji Ito. But before jumping into the review, I'm going to go through a bit of history for this manga. Shogakukan released the original manga, Jigokusei Remina, in Japan from August 16, 2004 to June 24, 2005. The manga became commonly known as Hellstar Remina in English. However, the name was first used when ECC Comics published the manga in Spanish as Hellstar Remina on August 26, 2015. It was not actually officially released in English until December 15, 2020 by Viz Media simply as Remina. Although Hellstar Remina seems like a faithful translation of Jigokusei Remina, Hellstar was dropped from the title for the English release. I do not know the exact reason for this, but I would guess it was to differentiate it from the Spanish release. More theories for the change could be because Remina is a planet, not a star, or it was to have a more even focus between the person Remina with the planet Remina in the story. Another difference, which also could have caused the title change, is the English release dropped the short story. Originally, Junji Ito's story Okumon Bochi was included in Jigokusei Remina. The story was commonly known as Army of One in English, most likely due to the Spanish release of Hellstar Remina 2, but it was officially released in English in Junji Ito's Venus in the Blind Spot collection as Billions Alone. Since Venus in the Blind Spot was the most recent Junji Ito release in English before Remina, it makes sense why it was not included again, but I would also think they could have just waited and included it in Remina since both were released so close together. Now, let me start the actual review of Remina by going through my observations of the physical existence of the book. From the first look at the cover, there is an immediate impression of a whole lot of red. And weirdly, I think it is the brightest looking of Junji Ito's English releases. Since the manga is of course completely black and white throughout, the red cover can show what the atmosphere must have been like when the planet Remina was near. Now, inside both of the front and back covers shows other scenes similar to the covers of earlier releases, and these contain more color, which kind of takes away from the severity of the redness. My observation of the cover continues though with how it feels. Like the other releases, this one is hardcover, but has two textures. Most of it is smooth and glossy, while the spine feels more like paper. It makes me very curious as to what the decision for this was. It seems kind of random. Of course, these different textures produce different sounds. The glossy part has a nice sturdy yet hollow sound when tapped, while rubbing the paper part has a relaxing, subtle scratching sound. Also, just throwing this out there, the book smells weird. It must be from what the paper is treated with, but it has a heavy chemical smell. This may just be from it still being pretty new, and hopefully it will fade away. As for taste, I do not want to risk my saliva damaging the pages, so I would not actually lick it. I should just assume that it tastes like manga. Now, for my sixth sense, it has given me this feeling of dread, a feeling of jealousy, a feeling of obsession. Which brings me to the story of Remina. Professor Tsuneo Oguro discovers the planet that appeared from a wormhole and named it Remina after his daughter, Remina Oguro. This amazing discovery leads not only to the professor gaining fame, but his daughter becomes widely famous too. After a year though, this popularity only brings disaster to them when the planet Remina starts heading towards Earth, while devouring other planets on the way. The public panics and puts the blame on the Oguros, the professor for discovering it, and the daughter for simply sharing the name Remina. The woman Remina desperately tries to survive the mobs with only a handful of devout people to help her, while the dread that is the planet Remina rapidly approaches to consume everything. At first, the most crucial antagonist of this manga is the planet Remina. Although it is dangerous, it is almost like a red herring as to what the real horror of the story is. To the person Remina, the planet may be the underlying cause of her problems, but it is the least of her concerns when it comes to the real threats to her life. Most of the horror in this manga is rooted in psychological terror. Everyone is of course scared, but most of the damage done is by these people before the planet had a chance to do anything to Earth. There is an immediate sense of mob hysteria when the human, Remina, becomes the target of a witch hunt that only leads to needless deaths. Even with the people wanting to protect her, there is an overlying feeling of distrust because most of them are only doing it because they are obsessed and want something from her. Mixing the jealousy they hold towards each other due to them thinking the others may be closer to her than themselves, and there's a lingering suspicion that these people could turn into a yandere on her at any moment. Yes, a monstrous planet is scary, but not as scary as the fickle and violent nature of humans. Before wrapping up this review, there are a couple more points I want to point out on this release of Remina that differs from earlier Junji Ito English releases. First, it is common for there to be a short story to be included, even with these releases that contain only one main story. Since Billions Alone was taken out, Remina does not have a short story and therefore makes it a shorter book overall. The other thing that sticks out to me is the scope of the story's setting. Most of Junji Ito's stories do not pose a kind of worldwide threat like Remina, and if they do, the settings still are usually contained in a single town or something like that. Remina kinda does both. The planet Remina is the big obvious threat to the world, but the story and horror mainly revolves only around the person Remina. It is this kind of smaller scope inside of a blatant large scope that makes this manga feel, at least to me, a bit off compared to Junji Ito's other stories. So, overall the book is smaller, and the story may have a different feeling from usual. However, this difference does add something new, and Junji Ito's style of horror is still strong and nightmare-provoking. Plus, the art style for this horror is top-notch as usual. If you are a Junji Ito fan, of course get this. If you are a fan of horror in general, of course, get this. If you are thinking about getting this, of course get this. If you are completely biased like me and will tell any and everyone to get this no matter what, of course get this. And that is it for this Otaku News Reviews. If you have already read Remina, let me know your thoughts, especially if you disagree with me. If you have not yet read it, I hope what I said was helpful in convincing you to, of course, get this. But until next time, I'm the AC. Thank you, and bye.